Okay, it's 5:30. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Okay. You ready? Oops, that could not be good.
Whose was clipped at the top? Didn't these clipped at the top? At the side.
I think mine was clipped at the top. There you go.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, calling to order the Historic Preservation Meeting for Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Next item up would be roll call.
Nathaniel Courtney. Phil Haight. Liz Hawk.
Here.
Michelle Hazen. Michael Hill.
Here.
Rachel Iannelli.
Here.
Dr. Kamal. Bridget Murphy.
Here.
Chair Reeves.
Here.
Vice Chair Warner.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Next item up would be approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. They carry. Next item up would be public comment. Is there anybody here to speak on an item that's not already on the agenda? Dottie? Come up and give your name and address.
Address?
Yes.
Just name.
Address?
Name and address for the record.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Dottie Fabacy. I'm a resident of Pleasant Street neighborhood, 505 Northwest 3rd Street. I'm also the chair of the Neighborhood Association. The reason I'm here, you get to see this or not, is I'm asking the city to please reopen Northwest 2nd Street on the corner of University Avenue and 2nd Street. Is he getting my picture?
Yeah, I don't know. Can
I don't
we see
know.
if we can zoom in on our phone on the table?
That'd be great if he could.
There we go.
Yes, he's got it.
He does?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Perfect.
This happened at the start of COVID. The city closed the street. Well, it's time to reopen the street. First of all, it's the entrance to the Pleasant Street neighborhood. Not the only entrance, but a main entrance.
Right.
So this makes it really difficult for emergency vehicles, residents, people coming in to take care of business or whatever. They have to go zigzag around the blocks. But that is an entrance to a residential neighborhood, the neighborhood being a historical neighborhood, Pleasant Street historic neighborhood. And I think we really need to have something other than this block street. And also there's the issue of fairness. How did this one business get to have this increased space? When I'm sure there's be lots and lots of businesses that would have liked increased footage. So I think it's time to give this street back to our neighborhood. And I'm really hoping that you all can support me in this and however you can do that. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Miss Dottie, when exactly, I can't remember when exactly they closed the street off. Was it in 2020? So it's been about 2 years now?
Oh, it's been 2 years, right. I don't know if it was at the same time they did the other streeteries. It might have been after the fact of that. So, but it's way past time to give us our street back. And it really is so unattractive, it's unsightly to be the entrance to a historic neighborhood. I've gone to the city commission twice. I've spoken to Phil Mann, Public Works.
Yes.
He told me, as well as the interim city manager, Ms. Curry, they both told me that only the city commission who closed the street can reopen it. No one else can reopen it but the city commission. So, and I've been to the city commission twice and they haven't seen it my way, so.
Okay.
Have you observed that it tends to be underutilized?
Of the restaurant?
Yeah, by anybody.
I'm not sure, can you repeat that?
No, do you observe that nobody seems to be using the
Right,
closed
and
street?
I have other pictures that show no one, I took that at 4 o'clock today and no one was there. I'm glad you
Man,
mentioned
every
that.
time I've gone by, no
No
one
one.
has been in that area.
And you know, that restaurant is only open 5 days a week for so many hours a day. But our neighborhood is open 24/7.
Yeah.
So, come on. Anyway, I really like your supporting us to help us get our neighborhood entrance back.
Thank you.
Yes,
Can you, just so I could look back at meetings, could you ballpark when you actually addressed the city commission about this, what meetings you went to? The dates-ish?
Sometime in November of 2021. But the one before that, really, I can't say.
Okay, but it was previous to that.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
very good.
because when I went in 2021, I made reference to being there one time before.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Hazen missed my presentation.
okay, thank you, Dottie.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would,
So I would offer a suggestion.
Sure.
I mean, maybe the best way for the board to handle that is to have staff prepare a resolution.
right,
And that way, at the next meeting, you would approve the resolution, and that could be sent to the city commission as an official statement from the board.
okay. How does the board feel about that?
Move to approve a resolution supporting the reopening of that street.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
All right.
think you got it. Thank you. Okay, anyone else here for an item that's not already on the agenda? Okay, brings it to the public hearing portion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I apologize for a little bit lengthy staff report, but I'll only read through the first one. This is one of 3 applications. They're all for new construction in Pleasant Street, and they all are adjoining each other. So for the most part, a lot of the staff report will be similar. And you saw these 3 applications at the January meeting, and you deferred these items to have the architect, revise the drawings and come back with something more suitable for the historic district. This is public hearing 1, petition HP 21-126, a COA for new construction. These lots actually do not yet have addresses, so they're by parcel number, and it's in the Pleasant Street Historic District. There are contributing structures across the street facing these parcels, and 4 contributing structures to the rear of the property.
Ms. Kaufman, do we need to do the swearing in first?
Oh, yes. We do. So if you are here to speak on any of the public hearing items, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you give testimony to this board here today? Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
And also, just for the record, Jay, we did have 2 more board members come in.
yes.
So we are very well stacked. Okay, this application was deferred from January 4th. The motion was made to defer the item until plans could be brought back in front of the board with a design that better fits within the character of the historic district in regards to size, scale, mass, and form. The board reiterated that the new single-family home needs to conform to the Pleasant Street Historic District guidelines for new construction and should also meet the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. So this first home will have 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths with a total square footage of 1,609 square feet. Your series of drawings that go with this first item. The first sheet is the previous submittal. You can see I wrote it on the bottom for you. So I wanted to include that for you so that you could recall what the previous submittal is compared to the new drawings that are behind it. So this new proposal does succeed in replacing the previous design with one that is more compatible with the historic district and the other resources along the street. This is a 2-story home. It reads as a 1.5-story home with the use of a tripartite dormer. The garage has been separated from the side of the house. It's now set much further back from the front facade, almost to the very rear of the home. The home features a front porch 14 feet in length, as well as a roomy back porch that is 8 feet by 15 feet. Proposed materials include horizontal siding, 2/2 single hung sash windows, simple wood balusters from the front porch, and composition shingle roof tiles. The proposed front panel door has raised panels of 2 different sizes, and this kind of door configuration really is more in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood. It looks, even though it's going to be of modern materials, it's not going to look like a very, very modern front door. I went through the district characteristics with you in your staff report and all the applicable standards that are in our guidelines. There are 12 criteria we use to evaluate the compatibility. The first criteria is rhythm of the street, the relationship of buildings, structures, and open spaces along a street that creates a discernible visual and spatial pattern. Clearly, these were all vacant lots, and we certainly prefer to have not vacant lots in a historic district. So the fact that a single-family home is being proposed for here is totally appropriate and compatible. The number 2 is setbacks. And this is the size of buildings, structures, and open spaces as it relates to the placement on the lot. In Pleasant Street, you kind of have all different kinds of setbacks. There's really not any one particular theme. Because of current zoning, there's particular setbacks they have to comply with, and this project complies with those required setbacks. Height is number 3. The overall height of buildings and structures related to those sharing the same street or block. In Pleasant Street, the buildings are primarily single-story and 1 bay wide. The proposed new structure is 2 stories, but it does look like a 1.5-story building with the elongated roofing slope and dormer feature. The resulting visual for the overall height does relate to the other structures on the same street and block. Number 4, roof forms, and that's the shape of the roofing system. In this district, primary roof form are side or front gable roofs with V-crimp metal or asphalt shingles. This project complies. Number 5, rhythm of entrances and porches, and that's the relationship of the entrance elements and the porch projections to the street, in relation to the street. In Pleasant Street, as this board duly noted in the January meeting, porches are very much a big part of the historic district characteristics. Porches are strongly encouraged and should have sufficient size to accommodate outdoor furniture and easy accessibility. Their widths and depths should reflect that which can be found on other historic buildings in the district. The proposed new structure does maintain a similar relationship with the porch and main entryway as the predominant feature of this front facade. Number 6, walls of continuity. Appurtenances of a building or structure, such as walls, fences, landscape elements that form linked walls, and enclosures along the street. Basically, what this is saying is if you don't really see it in the current historic district, it shouldn't be in a new project. We don't have a lot of walls blocking off the homes from the street in Pleasant Street. And none of these three proposals are proposing to put up a wall or fence in the front. Number 7 is the scale of the building. Relative size and composition of openings, roof forms, and details to the building mass and its configuration. In the Pleasant Street district, the building scale is relatively small with 1-story residences, low-pitched roofs, proportional bays and openings, and details that reflect the modest character of the neighborhood. The proposed new design has improved the overall proportions of walls and windows on all of the facades, not just the front facade. So one of the things, and I did meet with the architect after our meeting, after the board meeting, And one of the things we talked about is not just for the main facade, but for all facades, could we get some better proportions as far as openings and bays to solid wall? And he has done that with this proposal. The front and the back porch are significant percentages of their facades, and with the removal of the attached garage, the proposed structure is now better aligned with the neighboring structures in terms of massing and size. Number 8, directional expression, the major orientation of the principal facade of a building or structure to the street. This is talking about how the building or property faces the street, and this is a steep slope side gable, which is appropriate for this district. Proportion of the front facade is the width of the building, structure, or object to the height. So we're talking about width versus height. And the height is in scale with the adjacent structures, and the removal of the integrated garage has significantly decreased the overall width of this building, which is one of the huge issues we had with the previous designs. These 3 designs were just simply too wide for this particular historic district. The proportion of openings, the width and height relationship of the windows and doors in a building or structure to the principal facade. On the primary facade, the width and height relationship of the windows and doors are compatible compared to the opening proportions of other buildings within the visual proximity. Rhythms of solid to voids. The pattern, this talks about the pattern and overall composition of the openings, such as windows and doors, and the pattern and overall composition are compatible with the adjacent historic buildings. And last one, number 12, details and materials. So this proposed project is utilizing shingles for the roof, a horizontal plank for siding, simple wood posts and balusters for the porch, multi-light sash windows. These are all materials that relate to the existing context of the historic neighborhood. So those were the city's guidelines for new construction in historic districts. And then on top of that, you have the Secretary of the Interior standards, which are the federal guidelines. And for this particular situation, the standards that apply is standard number 9, because it does talk about new construction. So new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials. This is not, the lot is already vacant, it's not destroying anything, that characterize the property. New work shall be differentiated from the old, but shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. This new construction presents common distinctive features such as a front porch, the 2/2 single hung sash windows. That's very reflective of vernacular building vocabulary. The massing and scale, including the new height and the new width of the design, is in keeping with the character of the district. It is our evaluation that the proposed project does comply with all 12 criteria within the guidelines for new construction.
Okay. All right.
Well, let me just finish.
Okay.
Another concern that the board had was that one of the 3 proposed residential homes, so this was 3 in a row, and the board had concerns about how all 3 of them would look together. And the architect is here today, and he will show you a mock-up of the 3 together. And so our recommendation is that the application HP 21-126 be approved. However, final drawings to show the building materials for the siding, roof, windows, and doors will be supplied to staff before COA is provided. And that's just because the new drawings that the architect sketched doesn't necessarily have it all called out, and we just want to make sure what the materials are for siding, windows, and roof.
Okay. Mr. Kaplan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, first of all, I have the mock-up that Ms. Kaufman mentioned of the three houses together whenever you're ready to look at that. Secondly, I just wanted to note that there has been a lot of discussion about Pleasant Street being one-story houses, but there are a number of two-story houses in there, including the two houses directly across the street from these three lots,
Sure.
which are 1.5 and 2 stories.
Sure.
So I just wanted that to be clear, and otherwise, unless you have any questions, I'm standing by.
Okay. Since we need to go ahead and approve these one at a time, perhaps we should go ahead and see all three together?
Sure.
Okay. You want to go ahead and put it out for the overhead? Could we have the overhead view of it? Is it possible to zoom out so you can get the whole sheet together? There we go. Okay.
Those who have level sensitivity. So this shows the three houses together, and I know you haven't discussed the other two yet, but I just will say that I arranged them the way they are because the street comes down directly at this house, and I put the garage to the left so that the street is coming down to the house and not to the garage. The one on the other side, there is a one-story concrete block ranch slab-on-grade house next door, which is quite low, of course,
Right.
with a low-pitched roof. So I put the garage on that side, trying to kind of soften the relationship there. And then the one in the middle didn't really matter that much, but I composed it the way I thought would look good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Comments from the board on the first house?
So I just want to say thank you for the porch. We really appreciate that. And my concern wasn't necessarily with the 2 stories, it was with how wide the homes were. And I think by removing the garage and setting it back some, it goes with the flow of the neighborhood more. So I appreciate you working with our city staff to make this a more feasible homes for the Pleasant Street. Don't really like that last roof, but we're not on that building yet.
Okay. Anybody else?
These are a major upgrade as opposed to the last one, that's all I gotta say.
Okay. Turn your mic on next time.
Sorry, Jay.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. Any comments from the audience? Dottie?
Dottie Fabercy, Pleasant Street neighborhood. Right before the meeting, one of my neighbors contacted me and she wanted to know about parking. And I told her that each house had a garage, but I don't know about any other additional parking. There must be a driveway, I guess, right?
They have a driveway where they could stack cars, so I would assume so.
Because her concern is that right now, people are on the other side of 6th Street are coming into our neighborhood and parking in our neighborhood because they don't have parking on the other side of 6th Street. So you feel like the parking is sufficient?
Mr. Kaplan, would it be safe to say you could get a car or two in the driveway without actually even going into the garage?
The driveways go all the way to the garages are all the way in the back of the lot.
So you have a
probably
big
get
driveway?
3 cars in each driveway.
Okay. So the residents shouldn't be on the street?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll also note, just looking at the drawing, it reminded me, this is slightly exaggerated. There's actually a little more space between the
Between them?
houses
Okay.
than
Yeah,
this.
that's good to know, too.
But I wanted to fit it on a piece of paper.
We appreciate this because it's a very good comparison for scale and proportion, and that's helps us.
Also, these lots are very small,
Yeah.
so there wasn't a lot of place to go with this building.
Yeah.
I think they're 55 by 63 feet, so it's very tight.
Yeah.
Andy, can you please give your name and address just for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Andrew Kaplan. My address is 2572 Northwest 47th Terrace, Gainesville.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, yes.
I do have, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I did have one brief question for you. That, I'm looking at the floor layouts, and at least the first two that I've looked at have 3 bedrooms, 1 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Do you anticipate, and I don't know if you can really answer this, them being actually, when they're inhabited by people, being single family? Or do you think that they'll be like for college students, that it would be, a rent 1 room in a 3-bedroom? Because that would change the parking scenario a little bit, I think, just out of curiosity.
The owner's intention is to sell the houses.
Okay.
He can't, especially being a realtor, he can't control who buys them.
Right, obviously.
So that if you're an individual, you can, but as a business person, you can't.
Okay.
So that will be determined in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Melanie Barr, 216 Northeast Fifth Street. I just wanted to say how I appreciate Andy doing a variety of buildings, because we don't see that a lot. Sometimes they look too similar, and that would have never happened back in the day, because each person built their own home. So I do think this is a great example of what architecture should look like in Pleasant Street, and I really think it's great that he's putting the garage at the back of the lot, because that is historically appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, is anybody from the board ready to make a motion? On the first house, yes.
Make a motion to, make sure I put the right one. Make a motion to approve petition HP 21-00126.
Second. Do you want me to do a roll call, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, there's so many of us, so probably a good idea.
Daniel Courtney,
Aye.
Bill Haight,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Shel Hazen, Michael Hill,
Aye.
Rachel Iannelli,
Aye.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
One down. Okay, for the second one.
Okay. This is public hearing 2. And this is petition HP 21-00127. This is the property in the middle, or the one that you're seeing there on the screen. So the district characteristics are all the same, applicable standards all the same, but this house was originally designed, if you recall, in January as a 2-story home with a pyramidal hip and side gable roof. It's now 2 front-facing gables at different heights. The garage is now detached and is set near the back of the house. The home features a porch that is 6 feet by 18 feet, as well as a back porch that is 8 foot by 12 foot. Proposed materials include horizontal siding. He has changed up the dimension, the window typology, which is great. And now it's a 3/1 single hung sash instead of the 2/2. It's simple wood piers for the front porch, which is appropriate for more vernacular style homes, and composition shingle roof tiles. The proposed front panel door has a triple pane insert near the top, more in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood. So the applicable standards are the same, and the way that this particular project complies with them. Number 1, rhythm of the street. It is filling a gap on the street, which is good. Number 2, setbacks. This project complies with the setbacks. 3 is height. Proposed new structure is 2 stories. The overall mass, however, has been broken up by providing a 1-story roof line for the ground floor master bedroom. The resulting visual for the overall height does not read as one large structure. The architect has, given you testimony that there are in fact other 2-story homes in this area, and that is accurate. But this home, even though it's 2 stories, it doesn't read as one large kind of mass, which is preferable for sure. Roof forms is number 4, and this project complies with that. Number 5, rhythm of entrances and porches. The proposed new structure does maintain a relationship with the porch and main entryway as the predominant feature of the front facade. It's no longer competing with an attached garage on the side. So once you move an attached garage off of the house, the front porch becomes much more of the main feature of the front facade. Walls of continuity is number 6. This project does not propose any fencing or walls between itself and the street. Number 7 is scale of building. This new design has improved the overall proportions. The front and back porch are significant percentages of their facades, and the removal of attached garage, the proposed structure is now better aligned with the neighboring structures in terms of massing and size. Number 8, directional expression. This design, which features 2 front-facing gables, is appropriate to the district. Number 9, proportion of the front facade. The variable heights found on this structure is in scale with adjacent structures. Number 10, proportion of openings. This project complies. Number 11, the rhythm of solids to voids. The overall pattern and the composition of the openings, including for windows and doors, are compatible with the adjacent historic buildings. And number 12, details and materials. This project is utilizing shingles for the roof, horizontal plank siding, simple wood posts, multi-light sash windows, all elements that are totally appropriate for the historic district. Same standard applies, the Secretary of the Interior standards, same one applies, and that's standard number 9. And our evaluation is that the proposed project complies with all 12 criteria for the guidelines for new construction and complies with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. Staff recommends that the application HP 21-00127 be approved. Final drawings that will actually show the building materials for siding, roofing, windows, and doors to be supplied to staff for approval before that final COA is provided.
Okay. Mr. Kaplan, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. Okay. Let's open it up to public comment. Any public comment on this one? Okay. Board comment.
I have a performance question here in regard to the quantity of roof runoff from such a significantly large area. What thoughts have you given to that?
I would think that these houses would need to have gutters in a tight urban, semi-urban situation like this on small lots that are close together. Excuse me. They all have substantial roof runoff in one direction or the other, and I think that would be necessary. The second floors are smaller than the first floors, which is why the roofs are shaped the way they are. Excuse me. So the middle house, the roof may not be as large as you're imagining because from front to back is not very far.
I have a question as well. So just looking at the floor plan of this roof line, is there a reason that it has to, I don't know, I just think it'll probably be fine because the house that's gonna be to the west is sort of gonna block that roof line anyway.
Right.
So it probably won't be seen. I just think sort of an odd configuration on that roof line, something I think we wouldn't typically see on a historic home.
You're talking about where like the second floor
the second story kind of feeds down onto the first story, and I just don't know, is that because it looks like the second story is over, it looks like the portion to the right is just all attic, if I'm looking at this plan correctly. So on the second story, that section of roof line that comes down, I don't know, it just, yeah, it's not clear on why it,
Well, looking at the side west elevation, Andy, and then
Yes.
looking at the north, where you've got the one-story versus the two-story section. The little notch in the roof is reflective. What you're not seeing is where that little wall would be. There is a wall that's between the two roofs. It's not all just roofing going up into there.
so the wall is set back? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, there's a wall set back in there. So the
Well-
wall would be, whatever the roof overhang is, that same distance back probably.
Right, you can see that from the west elevation. Sorry, it took me a minute to find my drawing.
Yeah, it's just, if you look, the siding does carry across, it's just pushed back.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that there should be a darker line right between the roof shingle and the siding, I guess.
That's to let the two gables kind of
Right.
stand on their own and make
Yeah.
that background.
But I think your point about how tall the roof next door is a valid one, because people are gonna be seeing this primarily coming up the street or going down the street.
It's just, I can't recall ever seeing, like even the south elevation, it just, I don't know, it just seems so asymmetrical. It's just an odd thing. I just wonder,
I think if I could comment, we built similar houses to this, and what happens is the drainage that the problem that occurs where the porch is, where this kind of all comes together, you end up with more of a hip scenario coming off of the roof to catch that water and do away with that gable. So I think come construction, I think that may have to be adjusted somehow in order from a builder standpoint to build something like that makes it work, because you're making a third gable almost behind the front two gables, and there's just a huge drainage roofing issue in that scenario.
Well, may require some guttering or something in there.
True. I like the design, and I absolutely like the previous design too. I just want to make but aside from that question, I had another question was, what sort of foundation were you planning on building this out of?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
I apologize. What sort of foundation is this house going to have?
It's going to have a stem wall foundation, a
Okay.
concrete block and fill, then a slab.
Okay, thank you.
But back to Michelle's point, the way that roof is cut in between the two, I think from a perspective standpoint, it's gonna make the second floor gable stand out more on its own, as opposed to looking like it's all connected the way you see it in a flat elevation. Because looking up at it, you're gonna see how the roof comes out at you, and the other roof kind of stands more independent. And the area that we're talking about, the siding in between will be receding back.
it's just,
There is some sculptural effect there in that the small gable comes forward, and the taller gable goes back, and then that little area in between is back even further than that. So it does break up the facade a little bit and not have it look too much like a wall.
Yeah, right now, looking at it in a flat elevation, it has a little bit of that ski lodge look, but that's not what you're gonna see in 3D.
what is it, what is that space used for, I guess is, like, looking at the plans, that large section? Because it looks like is it very tall ceilings in the master bedroom then? I mean, because it looks, just from the floor plans, it looks like the majority of the actual, they just don't even,
That space where the roof is sloping down will mostly be attic. The master bedroom could have a vaulted ceiling. We just haven't got that far with the design of the interior yet.
I'm struggling with, I just can't think of a historic home that has this kind of angle unless it has more of a, I can think of a Tudor or something, maybe if it had more of a Tudor kind of thing, but I mean, other than that, I'm not sure what it's emulating, you know?
Yeah.
It just feels like an odd, doesn't have a stylistic, historical element that I recognized in any way. So I'm just struggling with that a little bit. I mean, again, if it was more of that kind of Tudor, I can think of the one on the boulevard, right at the corner of 10th. You know, I think that's one of the roof lines, but this doesn't feel like it has that sort of Tudor element to it in any way. And maybe there'd be a way, we wouldn't see that on Pleasant Street either.
No, you wouldn't.
Mm-mm. I'm just, you know, and even comparing the roof next door too, it's these two roof lines. I love the one on the left. I think we have a house on the street that's sort of the one right across the street that has a similar, but the two on the right, I'm just not understanding stylistically how it's a match for the neighborhood or what kind of, because, you know, just when we think about it, we've got Craftsman's, we have, you know, I mean, definitely a huge improvement over where they were. I'm just trying to understand the roof lines, I think, is where I'm really struggling.
Well, I think part of the issue is the underlying issue that you have, that a lot of the houses in the neighborhood are quite small. The houses that we've seen go up recently, in I guess the last 4 or 5 years, have been so much larger. You're starting to see the houses get a little bit more three-dimensional. And I think that's what this is a result of, is the house is bigger than what a lot of those houses that are existing are. And that seems to be the way the neighborhood's growing up. Everything's getting bigger.
Which is fine, I mean, I think, but we're also seeing a lot of details on those that mimic the, you know, I can just think of, all of them seem to have some architectural detailing that sort of helps them to blend with the existing structures. And
Well, that's where you get into the materials and the detailing. But with a house this large, it's really hard to replicate the three-dimensional form of the smaller houses. Because it is a bigger house, there's no question about that.
it is, I'm just thinking of the Strauss new build, you know, that's a pretty substantial house, and just for some reason that has a little more detailing, it feels a little more appropriate.
Is it on the same size lot?
I think it's on a smaller lot. It's a massive house on a small lot. We approved that one. Do you remember it came through?
I think so.
Just had a lot more detailing in the front. I think they have like a front porch. I'm and maybe I'm just not seeing it correctly here, but that roof line is, both of these roof lines are, they're just not indicative of anything else we're seeing in the neighborhood, in my opinion. And really, I just can't think of other than any, I'm struggling for the architectural, like where we see those kind of roof lines, because you definitely see it even in the back of the home too.
I just want to say, I find all three a significant improvement, and I think in addressing the scale of this, that you brought together elements to be found in various homes existing in the area, and done it in a way that does not, in their entirety, match anything in the neighborhood, but that's really not the objective, but to simply be harmonious. I think you've achieved that objective.
Okay. Other board comment? Yes.
Yeah, if I could just make a comment, it's actually not so much related to this particular project, but just in listening to some of the board's comments, it makes me think about some of the sentiments that I hear from community members in Pleasant Street in general. And what I hear the board describing is new buildings sort of slowly but steadily getting away from the old design of the neighborhood, and as they get bigger, they become less affordable for the people who, you know, traditionally have lived in these neighborhoods. So it's just interesting to hear that sort of come out in the comments, and well, for me, I was able to make that connection, and so it's just something to think about going forward, and even just because what I'm hearing is like what is actually happening with all of this space. Essentially, it seems what you seem to be describing is just like that space that's designed for the attic is just like a lot of space, like what's happening with it. And so in that, the conversation about the size of the homes is something that just makes me think about some of the issues that community members have brought up. So I just wanted to just make that point.
Okay, thank you. Andy, what's the average size of one of these houses, just out of curiosity?
The houses, square footage?
Yeah,
They're around
1,600.
1,600 square feet.
that's relatively small for,
Yeah,
I mean.
it's a middle-class home.
That's small, it's actually smaller than an average size home, so, just to give you an idea.
I got you, but I think about when I look at what's affordable for a lot of community members.
Yeah.
Actually, 1,600 square foot is in Gainesville. When I've been doing home shopping, it was actually sort of big for the things that have been affordable,
Yeah.
right, for people. So, point taken.
Well, and like I said, what is truly original to that neighborhood is a mixture. There on the south end, there were quite a bit bigger houses, and then you go to the north end, and some of those were 1 and 2 room cottages. I mean, as they originally started out, many have been added to over the years, and they've evolved, but they're, as a rule, simple rectangles.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
With the exception of one house, all of the houses in the immediate area of these 3 lots are quite large,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
One exception.
I can only think of the one. The one is the 2-story one on the corner. That's the new build, right?
What was the question?
The one that burnt down. They're rebuilding it now.
Yeah.
That's there, but
That was a big house to begin with.
and then the other one is a 1.5 story. I own the other one on the street, which is a small 1 story.
Right next to it.
But I could, it seems like the rest of the houses on the street are 1 stories. I can't think of another 2-story.
The house at the end of the street kind of widens out.
Yep.
And there are 3 houses around that area. One of them is 2 stories, quite large.
Oh, okay,
A
that one.
gray house.
Yep.
And the other 2 are 1 story with big front porches.
Big
But
porches.
they're also quite large homes.
They're they're not, yeah, they're, you know, those are the Queen Anne's, that's mine on the corner, but, yeah, I mean, I like the way that, I mean, I'm so happy to see these, I think it's gonna be a really nice addition to the neighborhood. I'm just struggling with these last 2 roof lines a little bit, I mean, I feel like too, just looking at the plans, it's almost like that space is not really being fully utilized either. And so therefore, it's just, I just think stylistically, maybe there could be a change that might just make it feel,
I could shape the roof differently, but I'm not sure you're gonna have any less volume up there.
I looked at what happens if you look at it from the side and go with a gable up, and then it ends up looking like the other roof. It goes or rides up too tall. So I don't think that's an answer either.
yeah, I mean, again, I'm not too tied up in this because I really don't think, from your drawing, it's hard to see. Are these lined up or some of them set back a little further or? Like,
See
as
how,
far as like, I mean, they're not all 1, 2, 3 at the same, I mean, do they step back or
The,
on the site?
the front of the house
see how the,
is the same
if you
on all three,
emphasize the lines the way you would see it in real life.
but there is shape to them. They're, you know, parts are set back and they have porches, so
Yeah.
there's not a line.
There's
that
not a
we're
line.
seeing along the front.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, you know, my personal opinion is that the fact that we're seeing it flattened out in an elevation is making it look more severe than it would be. And
Possible.
because I can visualize what it would look like from the street looking up at it, and I don't think it's going to be as big an issue. Sure, it's not going to match anything exactly in the neighborhood, but as long as it's compatible, that's the goal here.
And
And I was going to say, the one little thing I would recommend is see how you've got the shed roof on the front porch? If you
Yes.
could get a little bit of an overhang projecting out over there on the side towards the garage of that roof,
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
because you would not typically see a roof flush with no overhang like there. And I know the drawings are not
we
finished,
can do that, yeah.
but just a suggestion. Okay?
Yeah, that's a nice suggestion. The house that you said, I think it's 4th Street, bumps right into, is that the one on the far left? So that's the one you're gonna see when you're coming down 4th Street, the one,
Yes. Yes.
that one?
Which is good, because that's a symmetrical house.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I really don't even think you're going to notice this because it's a one-way street and, you know, the way the street's situated.
Well, that's kind of a point too. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a one-way street, so you're only gonna see it from one side and that roof line is gonna block that roof line,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's fine. So,
I was gonna say, out of all the roofs, I don't like the last one the best, and I can kind of visualize the middle one, like, in real life. And for me, the fact that he scaled the houses properly, took the garage off, made the porches more of a center, went with kind of different windows to differentiate, and I think when we really get the materials, it'll stand out more and it'll look like honoring the historic neighborhood while still being new construction. So my only real issue is that gigantic roof on the end.
Okay.
say on the back too of this one, just, I don't know, you know, something, because I know this roof, I don't know if there's a way to add some element on the south elevation. I know you've got sort of a gable vent at the top, and the north elevation, or, I don't
Well,
know,
Put it on the other side as well.
maybe a gable vent or something, you know what I mean? Just something there, it's just feeling a little bland.
Well, I don't think that's an unreasonable request, because if it had it on one side, it would have it on the other.
Right,
I could do that.
it just feels a little, right.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I agree that the asymmetry, I was just Google earthing the neighborhood and just looking down bird's eye view. There's not a lot of asymmetrical roofs in there. But I kind of want to return to what you said about size. And just for the record, that to talk about the remaining houses there as models, obviously that, you know, that's what we're doing, right? But we all know that there's been a heavy amount of attrition in that neighborhood. There's a lot of empty buildings. Empty lots.
Right.
And I remember when there were quite a few more bungalow-style, cabin-style ones there, and just because we don't see them anymore, those small ones are the ones that were lost, historically speaking. And so what we have is the larger ones, you know, as the comparison. But what about, you know, what we know was there versus what we see is there now? You know what I mean? And maybe that middle building could be smaller. Maybe that's how you fix the roof line is, you know, so then you've got 2, you know, 3 and 4 bedroom type houses, and then you have something smaller that would feed into the community having more access to it. I know that's probably not what the property owner would like to do, but I think that would be a little more historically accurate, not to have these 3 enormous houses right there. There would be, originally there would have been, you know, a big family house, a little family house, you know, sprinkled around. There'd be more diversity, right?
I'm not 100% sure we would see that. I mean, it definitely feels like, especially in that neighborhood, like I think, Jay, it was you that said earlier, I mean, the houses on the far south of the neighborhood were a little larger as you went back in the
There's
neighborhood.
some big ones, yeah.
They sort of, you know, scaled down, and there's still a lot of pockets of the neighborhoods. I mean, I love what's happening in this neighborhood. I love seeing things like this, and, you know, really, we can't go back in time. I mean, I purchased in that neighborhood 21 years ago, and realistically, there were a lot of just boarded up abandoned homes. I don't feel like we're pushing anyone out of the neighborhood. I think they had already left. And there's still a lot of the original residents that did stay. And in all honesty, I think, you know, hopefully they'll continue to stay, and hopefully those homes will continue to be in their families, and hopefully, but I don't see things like this pulling down the, I don't know, I think it's nice. We need urban infill, and I think these are nice, and I think, you know, they're not very large homes, you know, they're a reasonable size, and.
I have a question for Kathleen. Would these homes apply for the new city program? I forget what it's called, but it's like the come back to the neighborhood and you can get like a $25,000 loan. Does that apply to new construction, or is that only to, it does? So
Yeah, it does.
someone who lived in Pleasant Street previously could technically get city assistance to purchase one of these homes to continue that kind of historic community building.
Yeah, that was the major point that I was making was not the size of the homes themselves, right? We know that 1,600 square feet, I guess, is not a big home, but really my point was affordability, right? Because the larger these homes are, relating to size, right? Like, again, the people who have been removed from this community, whether or not they left on their own or, right, the different, many reasons for them leaving or being pushed out of the community, it's the same thing. So that was just the bigger point that I was making, again, not to harp on this particular project, but again, from my understanding of what I've heard community members express, these sorts of sizes are what make the people who traditionally lived in these homes not be able to afford them. So I'm just imagining the price of these homes after they're built, and I'm thinking about the people who've grown up in these neighborhoods or who would want to return to the neighborhoods. And even with that level of city assistance, what I'm just imagining the price of these homes is going to be, I don't know if those people would be able to afford that. So that was the major point that I was making behind size. So I didn't want to get, you know, caught up in actual size, but affordability is the major point.
Sure, and you've got a very valid point, and not to diminish that, but I just will say, what we have to evaluate on as the board is pretty much tied to the guidelines.
Mhm.
And the guidelines really do not address size, we address scale. And scale would be, you know, where you would get into, is it appropriate for the lot size and all that? But the underlying rules that dictate in the neighborhood new development would be the planning guidelines.
Gotcha. No, for me, like I said, it's not so much about this project, but there were comments that were made from the board that made me think about these. I wanted to, you know, just express the ideas because I felt this was, you know, a necessary platform.
We've had some bigger ones we've been concerned about for the very same reasons.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it might be helpful to know that affordable housing assistance goes up to over $300,000 to buy into neighborhoods.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? All right, let's address number 2. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve petition HP 21-00127 with the addition of a gable vent on the back and the
Porch
extension
roof
of the
extension.
porch roof extension.
Second.
And what of the porch roof?
Just extending the front porch, extending the roof line of the front porch.
An overhang on the south side, I guess it is. Not that way.
East.
East side.
East side.
East side. Okay, we have a motion, and we had a second? Okay,
Were you the second,
I was the
Liz?
second.
okay. And we'll roll call again.
Nathaniel Courtney,
Aye.
Bill Haight,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Aye.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Rachel Iannelli,
Aye.
Chair Reeves,
Aye.
Vice Chair Warner.
Bill?
What? What was it?
Aye. Aye.
Bill Warner.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
Good.
Sorry, I'm just reading down my list, and that's how it's written. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you.
Round 3. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is public hearing 3, petition HP 21-00133, new construction in Pleasant Street Historic District. This is the lot that is to the far right of the image you're seeing on the screen of the 3 together. This is also a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Total square footage is 1,601 square feet. This was also originally designed as a 2-story front gable with wing and attached garage. It's now a 2-story side gable with front gable entrance feature. The garage has been detached and is set near the back of the house. The garage features knee brace brackets supporting a pent roof over the garage door. There is a proposed 9-foot by 12-foot front porch entrance feature with simple wood balustrades and railings. Similar sized porch in the back that is 9 feet by 14 feet. Materials include horizontal siding. We return to the 2/2 single hung sash configuration and composition shingle roof tiles. I guess the bulk of the conversation for this particular house will be the roof configuration. It is a side gable, and staff, do you want me to read through all the criteria again?
No, I think we've got the general
I think
gist
you
of
have
it.
the idea. Staff recommends application HP 21-133 be approved. Final drawings to show building materials for siding, roofing, windows, and doors to be supplied to staff for approval before final COA is provided.
Okay. All right. We'll just dive right into board comment. Anybody?
I think I had a question about the front entryway, and I understand that the door is around the side, but from the elevation, it doesn't look like there's any way to actually get into the door. Am I missing something here? Is there a handrail that's directly in front of the entrance door? Because if you look at the north elevation, there's no extension out to the left side of the porch. I just need,
It's here, here's the door right here.
oh, the door's on the right side.
Right.
Yeah.
I tricked me.
Oh, okay, but
It's kind of hidden.
Okay, so you come up on the porch and then the door is there. Come up.
And I might just interject here that he actually took that configuration as off of another building, a historic building across the street that has that same configuration, where the door is actually on the side.
Okay.
and I love that idea, but from the elevation, it looks like the porch should be larger.
Yeah, redraw it. You just took the roof line up and
Oh.
over, and then just extend the porch over across the front of the house. That might work.
I'm just saying, it's a little, just the elevation is a little confusing. I'm sure there'll be more engineering involved.
Okay. Is there additional comments?
Well, I mean, I'm still a little confused. So you're saying that you come up on the front porch, this is the north elevation, then you take a right once you get up the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you go around the porch to get into the door.
No.
The porch is, the door is behind her. This is inset. So you walked up, you're on the porch now. When you look to your right, the door is here.
Okay, that's what you're saying. So that's the porch, but like I'm saying, from the elevation, if this is the north side, this would be the door on this side. You're saying the door's on this side. But
Look at the
that-
floor
the
plan.
west side.
What you're missing is, what you're not seeing is that door is set back in. Those windows, like if you're standing here right now, those windows are gonna be to the left.
Go to the floor plan, next page.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
see it on the floor
Let me,
plan.
let me take a look. They say I'm not building it.
Yeah, that's the laundry room, see? I had to look for it too, it was confusing. So see, that's
Okay,
the
I
laundry,
got you.
see, yeah?
All right, thanks a lot. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Plans are a good thing.
So just, it sounds like, I mean, I know, I too feel like the roof is just, I mean, this one's really roofy.
It's a tall roof, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it needs to be broken up, I heard that mentioned, right?
Looks like you land a helicopter on it almost.
And I think the other roof was on the first one to the far left, it was similar, but it had that dormer kind of window that really broke it up and made it make sense. But I mean, could you do sort of what I sort of suggested of just sort of extending that front? Because wouldn't that make more sense? Wouldn't we see that kind of design? on this
I'm
kind
sorry, I'm not hearing very well.
So that would, I mean, I think the roof is just so large, you know, and that we're not seeing that typically. I mean, could you do, like, extend the porch out? Because that's a north-facing window, it'd make the porch a lot bigger where it runs the length of the house and then just run the gable up so that it can sort of, I mean, to me, that makes the easiest,
What you're proposing, if it's what you sketched, it's
Yeah.
a cross gable.
like a cross gable. Can you see that? I'm pretending to be an architect.
Extending that like the other one?
Mhm.
You can, but are you talking about extending the porch?
Yeah, extend the porch, run another,
You can, it's gonna be awfully narrow.
the
Yeah,
porch will
'cause
be
the
narrow?
porch is only 3 feet wide there,
Mm.
or whatever the plan says. Look at your plan.
So that's a pretty narrow porch. I mean, then again, that's just something that we wouldn't.
It'd be 4 feet, but that's not enough to do anything with.
So wait. So the porch is, oh, I see, because the porch is 9 by 12, but it's set back.
Set back, so it's not full width.
Oh, it's a little place you can put some plants.
Remember, the roof, I know it's a large roof, but it is sloping back away from you. Someone will plant a tree in the front yard, which will soften that. And the porch gable does come forward, which will be the focal point of the elevation.
Yeah, but I feel pretty strongly on this one. Something needs to happen in that space, whatever it is. I mean, because even the existing porch just looks out of scale. Like, I just don't think we would see that. Like,
Andy, I've got a suggestion for you, and I'm just gonna throw it at you.
Okay,
It's not a requirement by any means, but just a thought. The gable over the front porch, what if that front porch roof were just simply a shed coming down to the point where you've got it breaking with the fascia? And then you put like a 2-windowed shed roof dormer in the middle of the roof up above, just to break the roof line.
shed roof
Dormer.
dormer for the second floor bedrooms?
I don't know if it would actually be functional or not, or how that would work with your plan, but I'm just looking at ways to break it up.
I mean, you could even do a dummy dormer just for the,
Yeah, that would probably happen about where your closet is, so.
I don't like spending money on dummy things.
excellent.
We're gonna make a dormer,
That's an
make a
excellent
dormer.
point.
Well, the other thing it could be is it could be a fairly small one with like just vents in it, which you see a lot of times on these old houses.
There could be shed roof dormers there. Ms. Kaufman and I talked about dormers, but I didn't like the idea of a traditional dormer. It didn't seem to fit into that neighborhood. but I think the shed roof could
A
work.
shed roof, I think you would see something like that on a roof this tall probably.
Yeah,
And it'd be pretty simple, just because.
right across the street is a shed
Wow,
dormer.
yeah.
And
And
I
it,
think that would be strange there to have the shed roof dormer there and then to have.
something about like that, and then you do away with that.
I would do away with
The
that.
gable on the porch.
And
Because the
instead,
gable on the porch, it makes a statement, but but in comparison to all that roof, it kind of gets lost.
Mm-hmm. It'll be over the stair.
Yeah, I think that's workable.
I mean, it's just a thought. But
Yeah, this could be set so it's over the stair.
yeah, it could be moved so it's in line with the stair, I guess.
so is it possible for this one to come back to us maybe with a little bit of a tweak? I mean, I mean, it's, I mean, I don't speak for the whole board. I don't know how everybody else is feeling about this roof line.
Well, the thing to talk about is the rest of the house. Does it seem to work? And if it does, and this is the only sticking point, I don't have an issue referring that to staff to review
Okay.
the final design.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I think overall, that seems to be the only concerns I'm hearing is that roof line in the front.
I actually have some more on that.
Okay,
On the south elevation, Joe? I
Yes.
just feel like that's too many windows. I mean, I've never really seen a house in the district that's had that many windows on one side.
well, it's also in the rear yard.
Yeah.
Look at the floor plan and see why the windows are there. That's what I would do.
I mean, I guess, well, that's the living room?
It's the dining room and kitchen area.
I think lots of windows can be good.
Oh, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, just like, I've never seen a house in the district that has that many windows on it, so I was like, what the heck? But, and, oh yeah, if it's by the dining room, then yeah, okay, I can understand that.
And it's not on the front elevation, so
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me personally.
Yeah, good point on that. You'd have to go looking for it to find it. Okay.
All right.
Any further comments or questions of the board? Comments of the public?
I mean,
Not seeing any, so yes, Michelle.
I guess my thought is, and I mean, you know, front facade, I don't know, that feels pretty major to do staff approval on, in my opinion. I mean, no offense.
Is it, oh, gosh.
Because what if we,
Point of inquiry, isn't that the correct term to use? Isn't there a rule that a project can only come before the board so many times?
Not if you're officially deferring the item.
Okay, if we're officially
They're
deferring,
getting
I
the-
know there was some item we had before where it was brought up that we had seen the item too many times, I can't remember what it was.
Well, and you have to have a public hearing within so many days.
That was what
Okay, that
happened.
was
We
what-
did,
Okay, that's what it was.
But this is the public hearing, and you are having board discussion, and it is gonna end in a vote of some sort.
Okay,
I'll move to
so
approve.
I'm fine with it coming back to us if that's what the board wants, but I'm also fine with staff.
okay. Well, let's talk, let's get some feedback from the board, because we've heard several people talk, but not everybody. What's the general consensus on, whether or not this is acceptable the way it is, or if it needs to be modified? Any? I guess we could,
I will not vote to approve of that roof, is what I will say.
okay.
I guess my question is, does the roof itself show any signs that it would not pass our guidelines, or do we just not like the roof?
no. In my opinion, this does not meet the guidelines of kind of fitting the neighborhood. We don't see these roof lines. I think it just needs to feel like something we would see in the neighborhood. I mean, it seems, so
I
to me,
understand
that,
what you're saying, but I think one of the residents said, had a pretty interesting point. The neighborhood is built up of a lot of different houses. It's not a subdivision where you get 3 different floor plans or 4 different floor plans it's named Mill or Oak or something.
But I think the 12 criteria, I mean, it's right here, roof forms, the shape of a building or structural roof system in relationships to its neighbors. And the primary roof forms in this neighborhood are either side or front gable roofs.
And I think the problem I have with that is I always go back to looking at the pictures of the neighborhood and see that there's not a whole bunch of houses that are identical. And so, I mean, if I had to vote on this right now, I would vote yay to approve it.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I would have to agree that the drawing of this roof is shocking, right? Just this big, but I think when I start to think 3D and not looking at it head on, it's not as extreme as it appears in the drawing. And then also on the, if you draw a line from the porch roof on the east side, across here, it's when you've got this, the three-dimensionality of the covering that's over the porch, I think it's not going to look as large as it does either in real life. But then I wondered, I would like to see that roof in V-crimp metal, but I don't know if that's appropriate, or would that change how people feel about the aesthetic of it?
Yes.
I don't know. Yes? You don't like that?
You can talk to Vice
Okay,
Warner
sorry.
about that.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject.
I
But.
mean, I think it is gonna look big, and like when it's gonna look large, like it's a lot of squares of roofing right there. But Mr. Kaplan did agree that to some sort of dormer, excuse
Dumber.
my faux pas, would be a good idea. So
I don't know, it's just an option and a thought, but you may have others. That's why I'm kind of like, I think,
Me too. Yeah.
well,
Well, the architect has indicated that he's receptive to tweaking that element, and certainly has heard the conversation. I think our staff is entirely qualified to
I would agree.
discuss the project in that regard and make an appropriate approval.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion then?
I will. Move to approve HP 21-00133 with subject to staff approving a tweak to the street elevation of the roof.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further comment? Okay, Kathleen, if you'll give us a vote?
Nathaniel Courtney,
I abstain.
Bill Haight,
Aye.
Liz Hawk,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Purely because I wanted to come back.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Rachel Iannelli,
I say nay, I'd like to look at this again.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-2.
Okay. Andy?
Thank you.
One thought, you mentioned you would only like to see the dormer, or if you pursue that idea, if it were functional. Just historically, let me tell you, most of the dormers you see in the neighborhood are quite small and are not functional, but simply attic vents, so.
You can make a bigger closet. I'll
Just a
look-
thought.
Okay, I'll look at that. Can I take a moment, give you a little bit of history on the neighborhood that you might not know about?
Absolutely.
Ms. Barr being here reminded me, because I suspect she was on the board when I was on the board.
Uh-huh.
And we decided to look at making Pleasant Street a historic district.
Yeah.
And remember, this was many years ago when politics of the day were not hot like they are today. They were a little boring. And we hired a consultant, and the consultant came back with a report on the historic resources in the neighborhood and recommended that we not make it a historic district.
Mm.
And because he said, remember, a lot more boarded up houses back then.
Sure.
He said there was going to be endless controversy that the city was going to want to be tearing down all these houses, and we'd be fighting all the time. And being a bunch of old hippies, we all looked at each other and said, controversy. And that's why Pleasant Street is a historic district.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. All right, back to the agenda. Okay, new item?
This is public hearing 4. This is petition COA, and if you're wondering why the numbering system is different, it is because we have gone to citizen serve at the city of Gainesville. We have a whole new system for permitting, and it's called citizen serve. The 555, the 5 zeros in front of the number is not nothing the city could do about it. It's the way the new system is set up, so I apologize for that.
Understand.
It's no longer going to be HP, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be COA, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
This is petition COA 22, 0 to the 5th power 7. Certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a 792 square foot ADU accessory dwelling unit. As this board knows, there is even an additional set of criteria for building accessory dwelling units. So we have all that going on. It is a northeast district, commonly known as the Duck Pond. 1925, but it is the property appraiser suggested date, but we know it is at least as old as 1913 because it appears in the 1913 Sanborn map. It's a 2-story colonial revival, and it features a 1-story portico for the entryway. It's got decorative brackets, dental molding under the eaves. True to the colonial revival style, the building's form is rectangular with a central hall, side gable roof with an interior end chimney. So this property is on a corner. So it is, the proposed ADU is behind the house, but you will see it from the side because it is it's a corner property. This ADU is replacing an existing 1-story, 2-car carport. So the current configuration behind the existing house is that there is there's a carport and an existing 1-story apartment complex, like an apartment right behind it. So the little 1-story apartment building is not being demolished, but the 1-story carport is being demolished, and then this 2-story ADU is replacing the carport. The property is zoned U2, and with that kind of zoning, we know that the side setbacks are 5 feet and the rear setback is 10 feet. This proposed ADU is requesting from this board a variance to allow for almost a 4-foot setback. But I will tell you, the existing carport encroaches into that setback even further. So they're taking down the existing carport and they're proposing for the new construction to come closer to the existing house than what is currently there. So while they are requesting for a variance, which this board can approve, the board has the authority to approve the zoning variances, it is not going to be as close to the property line as the existing carport. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So The ADU standards there are a series of standards. I think there's 10 in total. Not all of them are applicable for every project. So I only, for the sake of brevity, I only included in your staff report those ADU criteria that are pertinent to this project. And that it would be ADU standard number 2. Each ADU must comply with all standards applicable within the zoning district. And as I just explained to you, this one does not. However, the Preservation Board does have the ultimate authority to approve variances to such zoning. And the new ADU is actually going to be 2 feet further away from the side property line than the current structure. Number 4 is each ADU may not exceed 850 square feet. This project complies. ADU criteria number 5. The ADU must be designed as a subordinate structure to the primary structure on the lot in terms of mass, size, height, and architectural character. The architectural design, character, style, and appearance must be consistent and compatible with the primary structure. The applicant has really done a great job, I think, in attempting to make the materials and the look of the new ADU really cohesive with the existing colonial revival 2-story structure. You do have a 2-story structure as the primary residence, so the fact that this one is 2-story is not going to overpower the primary structure. They are using wood 6/6 double hung sash windows, fiber cement shingles that kind of imitate the look of what's on the existing 2-story house, and asphalt roofing shingles. The garage doors are designed in the carriage house style to be compatible with other historic carriage houses that are in the historic district. ADU criteria number 6, the detached ADU cannot comprise more than 50% of the total visible facade area parallel to the front property line. This project complies. We have 2 Secretary of the Interior standards which are applicable in this situation, and that is Standard 9 and Standard 10. Standard 9 is about, as it relates to new additions or related new construction. It can't destroy historic materials that characterize the property, and the carport it's replacing is not a historic carport. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. The proposed ADU, while referencing some historic elements such as the shingle siding and similar wood configuration, these are clearly going to be modern materials. It's not going to imitate the historic materials on the house. And as an example, the garage doors, though they are referencing the type of garage doors you would find on a carriage house, they're clearly more modern in design with those panel configurations and transom windows. This would not be confused as a historic structure. The size and scale are compatible with the surrounding 2-story structures, and it does not overwhelm the existing historic property. Standard 10, new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the form and integrity of the historic property would be unimpaired. Again, this is not even attached to the existing historic structure. It is detached. Staff recommends that the application COA 22-000007 be approved.
Okay. Can I ask a question first? Is this technically even an ADU because it's a garage with a bonus room? And I assume that's for the house.
Yeah, it's considered an ADU if it's livable space above it.
Oh, because of it being livable space.
Is it livable space if it doesn't have like a bathroom? Like what makes something considered livable space?
Kitchen.
I think anything under air. You can have an
I would
ADU.
assume a kitchen or a bathroom.
I would think
Kitchen
you
and
would have to
bath.
have a kitchen
Kitchen
or
and
a
bath.
bathroom or something to make it livable because you couldn't like
No.
I mean, I guess you technically could, but.
No,
Bill, you say,
the definite, to be a dwelling unit, it must have a bathroom and a kitchen. What was considered an in-law suite denied having a cooking capacity. An ADU does allow a full kitchen
Right.
capacity.
but my question is, this is more, I see this as being more of an addition to the house. Yes, it is adjoining an ADU, no question about that. But it doesn't look like it connects. So-
No, it doesn't connect to the existing one-story unit,
No, the
other
ADU,
than it being an adjoining.
no, the ADU zoning provides that you may have a separate dwelling unit in your house
Right.
and that you may add a dwelling unit to the house.
Mhm.
Both.
But ADUs can be attached to the existing or detached.
Right. It can be in the house and it could be attached to the house, or separate.
It can be, it can be attached to the main structure or completely
Detached.
detached.
Does it matter what we call this, do you think?
It seems more like a garage with a.
Garage with a bun- I mean, I'm just not sure. I mean, because we're calling it an ADU now, and they want to add a kitchen or a bath, I guess they could.
They could,
They could, because if we're.
because it would be approved for an
Because it's
ADU.
approved as an ADU, and maybe it gives them future potential to do that
Okay.
versus. right?
Okay, this is the first time I've run into this with this new ADU thing, that's why I'm asking. Because in
Right.
the past, we probably wouldn't have considered it an apartment.
I mean,
Well, what's before us is no more than a garage with a space over it.
Yeah.
That's what's before us.
well, maybe,
Well, the owner is here, so maybe she would like to tell you if there's any
Sure.
future plans for
Sure.
either a bathroom or a small kitchenette.
Please,
But
Please.
can you put your name and address on the record, please?
Sure, Jennifer Bridge, and I'm at 201 Northeast 8th Street.
okay.
The bonus room is approximately 264 square feet. I don't think we could fit a bathroom or kitchen in there if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's a no.
But your intention is, it's to serve the house, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No,
just
as
an
the
office.
garage is, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so your intention isn't to having somebody living in
no.
'Cause, yeah, I mean,
there. 260 square feet is enough.
So basically, you're taking the carport off and making a nicer garage with the space above it that's usable.
Right.
That's basic.
Yeah, and it's, it's like story and a half, so it's a pretty limited space
Yeah.
up
Yeah,
there.
so
Yeah.
just looking at it.
well, it's a bonus room for whatever, but it's not technically an independent apartment.
Yeah, just for clarity here, the block to the south of this improvement
Uh-huh.
is a dwelling unit.
Right.
It has all, it constitutes an ADU.
Right,
It's already there.
right.
What is before us has nothing to do with ADU. It's a building with a space over it. That's all.
Yeah. My only concern is, does the building department, because this is technically in addition to an ADU, even though they're not sharing space, consider it an ADU as well?
No, no, not really.
I don't know.
Not think that.
That's something I don't know.
We're getting clarity right now,
Okay,
Okay, working on it.
working on it.
okay. Not that it matters.
I mean, I
Let's
think,
talk about,
well, and I think sort of it is important though, in the sense that you're allowed, the new codes allow one detached ADU and one attached. So one detached ADUs, right? So if we're calling this an ADU and it has a separate entrance, well then there's two detached ADUs. So it just seems like maybe not calling it an ADU would be beneficial all around because that's not its use either.
Yeah, the code might throw it back at us.
it's all gonna depend on what
What,
the code says.
what is before us is not in any way an ADU. We're not approving an ADU, we're approving
Sure.
a garage with a space over it, that's all. And if it's in the future, well, I mean, that's it. That's what is before us. the use of the term ADU in regard to the item before us, there's no connection. There's no ADU thing about it.
Yeah, that would be my assessment too.
Looks great.
Yeah, and I also, I mean.
Let's talk about the design.
If it matters,
It's just, I mean, this is
the entrance to the bonus room is from inside the garage, so you couldn't even get up there
That's,
separately anyways.
that's
so-
obvious.
Okay.
Yeah, no, looks, yeah, design's nice.
Say that.
We have a huge,
It's a lot better than the carport.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
yeah, we have a very good improvement proposed for us, before us.
We make a motion to approve it as petition COA 22.
It is not an ADU, but you would not be able to put anything in it in the
Fair enough.
future.
Yeah,
I
no
guess
attention, no space.
the big question I have is this is basically building it right on the property line without any setback. And I get that there's a carport there, but I'm just fascinated that there's a system in place where you can encroach on so close to the property line like this.
Well, it has to do with the building patterns throughout the neighborhoods. And particularly the duck pond neighborhood, accessory structures were always located to the back or sides and typically right on the property lines, either close to or right on them.
So that's basically just in the duck pond area, because I've built in.
Yeah, right.
Substantially.
It's the historic districts. It's typically the historic districts because they were done back in the, these were done back in the days when we didn't really have any setback guidelines. And,
So if there's ever so there's basically no utility easements or anything between property?
No.
no, it's usually from the back or the front only. And the board generally looks at the surrounding area, and the pattern is usually the justification. We typically don't allow less than 3 feet in the most severe case because you're getting into a fire code issue of how close you are to the property line and, that kind of thing. In this case, 4 feet is not unheard of, but, you wouldn't want to do it up close on the front part of the property, but, yeah. And it also has to do with where the property line is because they move all over the place through these historic districts. Sometimes you're set back from the street quite a ways, sometimes not so much.
This house too has a nice, like the neighbor's house is pretty far.
Pretty far away, yeah. They're big yards around these houses.
Yeah.
This proposed construction is providing 2 more feet than it has now between the next property.
Because
Yeah.
the existing ADU is already on that property line, so I don't think they're.
Yeah, it's actually
not making-
Yeah,
making
but it's a
the encroachment
carport,
less.
It's not a two-story garage.
But the apartment is, like,
I understand what you're saying, but a carport and a two-story structure have different footers,
Mhm.
structural footers, that make a difference when you're
Yeah.
right up in the property line. That's good to know, I appreciate that.
Okay.
So can I make a motion?
Are there any other comments, Melanie?
I'm the adjacent property owner.
Okay.
This definitely affects my property. I lived in the red bungalow for 9 years, and when I moved out to my present house, I still own it. And the red bungalow was a duplex with a garage apartment. And this building is going to be 30 feet from the red bungalow, and my tenant there works at home, and she does Zoom meetings, she has a podcast. She has to have it quiet. So the main thing I need to know is, and I'm pretty sure she's going to break her lease because she has to have it quiet, but I need to know how many months the construction is expected to take and when it would start.
I think that would be a question for the owner's builder.
Yeah. Obviously not a question for us.
But no way to know.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information at this time.
Yeah, that's understandable. I would say you're looking at 4 to 6 months typically. Yeah. And 30 feet, that's a pretty decent setback.
It's just right across the driveway. The driveway is right next to it.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Well, I am glad that it's being moved over 2 feet, but the driveway is right there, and then that apartment where she's home all day. In fact, both of the people are working at home now permanently.
Okay.
But the other people on the east side, it's not gonna matter, but on the west side, she's gonna be listening to that construction.
But just.
You're guessing 4 to 6 months now.
We're seeing so much new construction there, and you think about it, the big loud days are gonna be with the framers are there, and they're in and out pretty quick. You've got the roofers coming out making a lot of noise, but, I
That's
mean,
also-
really.
That's also, unfortunately, not one of the criteria we.
No, it's not a
Right.
criteria.
Right, but
I was
just, I mean, but even for your
I'm just
tenant, just to
questioning
tell her,
how
you know, I
long-
mean, she could probably pull off just getting out of there when the roofing and the framing is happening, and, you know, I mean, it's, to me, the rest of it.
And I mean,
Not
nowadays they're
crazy
using
loud.
air guns, not hammering as much, so, you know, it's not as bad as it used to be, but yes, there's.
I
gonna
just
be-
feel like she is gonna break her lease because of the noise, because she has to have it quiet. That's all I'm saying, and I'm just wondering how long you think it would take.
But-
And the
but
property owner
just-
could tell me as well.
Plan on six.
Like, one other thing though, Melanie, I mean, there's, I'm sure, nothing in your lease that allows somebody to break a lease because
I
of
know, but if she
noise in the
can't
area.
work,
Yeah, if you're
that's the
willing to
bottom
let her.
line, she won't
break-
be able to
yeah,
work.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just like to say to the applicant that I am glad you bought this, and we appreciate your investment in this property.
Okay. Yeah. I just also want to say we share the same concern because I also work at home and so does my partner. So we will, you know, kind of work to, I don't know, make it as, we just don't have control over that. But I recognize that it's going to be a challenge and we'll have to work through it too because we also work at home. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Make a motion.
Kathleen, did we find anything out about the ADU?
It's not an ADU, but she cannot put anything in there.
No, I understand that, and she understands that, that's fine.
So is that what we're approving, an ADU?
No, we're
No,
not.
we're
We're gonna
not.
change it. So we can say petitions, COA, approval. Make a motion to approve petition COA 22, lots of zeros and a 7. Certificate of appropriateness for the new construction of a 792 square foot garage and bonus room space.
I think I'd second that.
Okay. Okay, Kathleen?
Nathaniel Courtney,
Aye.
Bill Haight,
Aye.
Lynn Cox,
Aye.
Michelle Hazen,
Aye.
Michael Hill,
Aye.
Rachel Iannelli,
Aye.
Jay Reeves,
Aye.
Bill Warner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, good luck.
Good to see it.
Okay, that brings us to board business.
Okay, I have some things for you.
Oh, goody.
Items. I'll be brief. So May is Historic Preservation Month nationally.
Mm-hmm.
National Historic Preservation Month. And before you know it, May will be here. So I have been talking with my director and saying, hey, you know, it'd be cool if we kind of started doing something again for Historic Preservation Month. And he's all on board with that. And obviously there's just one of me. So without going into too much craziness, like your input over the next couple weeks, you can email me, you can call me, you can give me suggestions for what we can do. I was thinking at the very least, we could do some historic preservation awards. And, you know, you can help me come up with categories and I will, yes.
Right off the bat, I remember being before the city commission, and at the beginning of May, the mayor made a proclamation identifying May as Historic Preservation Month in
Yes.
Gainesville.
Yes.
That was good stuff.
I actually have that proclamation language here. So we could bring this back. We could have the city commission proclaim it as Historic Preservation Month for the city of Gainesville. Do some historic preservation awards, recognize the people that are doing the good work in this community. Maybe partner with the Matheson Museum and to provide a small event where people could come and we could present those awards and then maybe have a speaker. So things like that. I will be emailing you to kind of pick your brain and to see if you've got thoughts on preservation award categories. I already have some ideas on that, but be looking for that in the next week or two, because honestly, before you know it, you'll need to you'll probably vote on those preservation awards at the April meeting so that they can be presented in May.
Okay, that all sounds great.
Your items of interest were provided to you by email this month. That was sent to you today. And the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation has been hard at work trying to get this year's special categories grants funded by the state. The special categories grants are an annual grant cycle offered by the Division of Historical Resources at the state. This year they did put together a booklet that showcases all of the grant applications. We just don't know. We don't know if that's going to get funded. Some years it was as healthy as 12 to 14 million. In the last 2 years, it has been zero funded. So this grant cycle was so heavy because we still had people from the last 2 years still trying to get funded.
Right.
And as an aside to that, if you're not already a member of the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation, I highly recommend it. It's the statewide preservation nonprofit organization. I think it's $35 for an individual membership, but you would get the Florida Preservationist newsletter. You would get, the invitations to all their events, and you would get to be a part of that networking and advocacy group. And one last thing to update you on. Last week, I spent 4 days in Tallahassee. I was selected to be on the grants panel for the African American Cultural and Historical Grants. Because I sit on the Florida Historical Commission and 2 of us were appointed to be on that grants panel. It was, think of a 3-day marathon commission meeting. Okay, that's what it was like. We had 153 applications to go through and review and hear testimony from the applicants on. And vote, rank and vote on them. To hear all of the projects from all around the state of these African American historic sites, these African American run organizations, was truly an amazing experience. As difficult as it was to sit there all day for 3 days, but fascinating because, and I have been all over the state in my capacity as the executive director of the Florida Trust, and I still learned about communities I had never heard of. And amazing what some of these people are trying to do. That grant cycle was only open from October to November in 2021. So the applications were due November 30th, 2021. 153 grant applications came in that time period. So there is $30 million available. I don't think it's going to be a recurring thing. I think we all think, could be wrong, but our understanding is this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity for this particular pot of money because it came from federal funding. It was a result of COVID funding.
Yep.
So all that COVID funding came to the state of Florida from the feds, and the state of Florida legislators appropriated $30 million of it to go to the African American cultural and historical grants. So of the 153 projects, about 54, or I think it's about 54 that are going to be funded where that 30 million cutoff is. And I'm happy to tell you that Gainesville's very own Cotton Club is is definitely going to get the funding because they were ranked very high. And I had left a message from Miss Vivian to see if she wanted to come here tonight to tell you what the project was going to be about. Maybe she'll come to the next meeting. But they're super excited. They're getting a little bit over $300,000 for phase 4 of the renovation and some exhibit, beefing up the exhibits a little bit inside. So that is super, super exciting. That's all I have for you on that.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, in your information packet there, you're focused on there's a section on the Matheson display. There were 2 photos associated with that. One was in front of Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow I wasn't in that one. However, in the other one, in regard to picketing in front of the College Inn restaurant, I'm the guy on the right.
This photo
The one,
College
in front of the
demonstrating
cafeteria.
in front of the CI.
So that's
That's
right
it.
there on the right there.
Yeah, I'm the guy with the sign on.
Is that really? Okay, so I just sent this out this afternoon. I'm super impressed. You already looked through it. But this is the informational packet I sent for you for this month.
Oh,
On the far right though?
Yeah, far right.
So that's him, right there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to hear about the Cotton Club. It was something that some of our Rinkers students in the past have worked really hard on with Charles and Vivian and a lot of community members. I'm just sad Charles isn't around anymore to hear that they've gotten this extra funding to continue. But that's great to hear.
it's
Yeah.
good news.
We lose so many of our sites. It's so fabulous when we actually have money to save them.
It was really, really interesting to hear the breadth and
Bill, you looked good back there.
different scope of all the projects being presented. A lot,
Look at you.
several African American cemeteries. So in that packet, there's an article about the Alachua cemetery that's African American cemetery that's being preserved. And I think that's wonderful because for the longest time, a lot of these cemeteries were basically lost to history, completely obliterated, and tombstones and everything just gone. And so several of these projects that we're trying to get funding is for the LiDAR penetrating radar to determine where the graves are, because there's no more gravestones. But we know we know that the cemeteries are there from oral history and just the local community knowing where these African American cemeteries were. But the ground penetrating radar will actually tell them where the grave sites are and how big the site is, and so.
Wow.
Okay, other item unrelated. I got a call this past week from one of our neighbors in the Northeast District inquiring about doing a shed. I know that the city building department doesn't get into sheds that are, you buy a shed, you put it down, and they tried ways of dealing with it. They just said, no, you want a shed, just put it somewhere. So it certainly will come up from time to time, and all of our board members should have a clear understanding of what, if any, prerogatives we have in regard to sheds, which I understand be none.
Well, I think we do. The historic preservation ordinance certainly talks about any ancillary, I never can say this word, ancillary structures on the property, but it probably can be a staff approval.
Well, the reason the city got out of it was that it's not subject to structural requirements, tie down. I mean, people buy a shed, put a couple of concrete block out and set it on that. So they don't deal with it the way they deal with a building.
Right.
So-
Correct, but the whole purpose of a COA for a particular, anything happening on a property isn't necessarily to make them go through the rigors of coming in front of the board, but it's so that we have a record of what structures are being put on the lot, and so that at least somebody's eyes are seeing it, so that the shed is not maybe super visible from the street, or,
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
I just want us all to
Be aware of
understand.
it, yeah.
Oh,
That
you,
if-
you
that
actually
if-
have
that
more
if-
purview over things than some building codes.
Yeah, so I just want all of us, as individuals, we get the question, simply to identify to contact you in regards to placement and staff approval.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, fine.
Okay. All right, anything else?
When you think about it, it's actually very impressive, the authority and powers that this board can have.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I just have one question, Catherine, maybe you have an update for us. Has the school board reached out to us at all about our letter we sent?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
Has it been taken in front of the county preservation board yet?
No, it has not, actually. We will be having our first in-person meeting, as I know, March 14th.
Okay.
So, we had a rough draft, but that's it. We're just going back and forth on that rough draft. So, yeah.
Do you,
Yes.
do you expect that it will be taken up on the March 14th meeting in the county?
Absolutely, it will. Yeah, I mean, it's been tabled. A lot of the members of the county historical commission agree with our point of view on the school board building, and they're taking a similar route in action. It's just that really right now we have a letter, and that we're kind of editing and revising that letter at the moment.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay. We are adjourned.